Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining. We have a lot of guests joining us today from all over the country, so we're really excited about that, and obviously all over New York. So we'll give everyone just a few moments to connect to webinar before we begin with today's exciting topic. Hopefully you'll learn a lot and get all of your questions answered. We will save time for your questions, so do not worry. We will have plenty of time to have you get your questions answered. Okay, it looks like we're almost caught up with everyone connecting. My name is Amanda Mills. I'm the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Stony Brook University, and I want to be one of the first to not only welcome you to this virtual event, but to hopefully welcome you to Stony Brook University. Congratulations on your admission. We're really proud of you. And we know that paying for college is a huge decision, and being able to afford it is really important. So we want to give you all of the tools that we have to make sure that you are really equipped to understand your financial aid and what's available to you. So again, if you're just joining us, welcome. We're really happy that you're here. And now we'll get started with the presentation. Just as a note, you can use the Q&A at any time, and we have almost the entire financial aid office here behind the scenes to answer your questions as best that they can in a chat setting. And without further ado, I'll pass on the presentation to Ebony Griffith, who's going to lead you on the journey for financial aid.
Good night, everyone. I would like to welcome you to our presentation tonight. So thank you for coming out on this lovely Thursday. I hope everyone stayed safe after the blizzard, if you had a blizzard. So tonight we're going to be discussing how to understand financial aid for new students, and we will be going over tips and insights from the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarship Services. So on behalf of our entire office, welcome. So tonight we'll be discussing the FAFSA application, some contributor questions, the Student Aid Index, as well as some known FAFSA issues. This QR code on our screen does take you to the studentaid.gov website where you can fill out the FAFSA application if you haven't filled one out already. We highly encourage you to do so. So when preparing for college, there are some key questions that parents should ask. First, we want to go over what is the total cost of attendance? So how much does it exactly cost to attend a specific institution? The cost of attendance includes things like tuition, fees, housing, books, transportation, as well as personal expenses. Next, you want to ask, how is financial need determined? So financial need is determined by taking the cost of attendance and then subtracting the student aid index, also known as the SAI, which we will go deeper into on another slide. And that gives you the financial need. Last, you want to ask yourself, what types of financial aid does the school offer? Does the school offer grants? What kind of scholarships are available? Work study, and also loan options. So what is the Student Aid Index? So at the end of completing your FAFSA application, you get this number, also known as the Student Aid Index or the SAI. And it's an eligibility index number that a college or university's financial aid office uses to help determine how much federal aid you will be receiving. It specifically takes into account the student's contribution as well as the parent's contribution for dependent students. If you're an independent student, it will only be the student contribution that comprises the SAI. The SAI versus the cost of attendance. So the cost of attendance is how much it costs to go to a specific university. You can think of number one as your most expensive institution, number two as falling somewhere in the middle, and number three as your least expensive institution. So the cost of attendance is variable. That means it varies from school to school. Then you subtract the student aid index. That is not variable. It remains constant no matter which school you attend. And when you subtract those two numbers from each other, you get the student's financial need, which is also variable because the cost of attendance varies from institution to institution. What is financial aid? Financial aid consists of funds that are provided to students and families to help pay for your college expenses. This can consist of scholarships, grants, loans, and work study. So we're going to go deeper into each of these specific types of financial aid funds. We have something called gift aid as well as self-help aid. Gift aid consists of scholarships and grants, and it doesn't typically have to be repaid. Self-help aid consists of loans and employment opportunities, and we call it self-help aid because the student usually assumes responsibility for taking those loans out, or they assume the responsibility of gaining employment, whether that be on or off campus. So there are many different sources of financial aid. We have the federal government, which you can obtain funding from the federal government by filling out a FAFSA application. We have the state, which would be for New York State residents. That would be your TAP, your Excelsior, your STEM. We have colleges and universities. So colleges and universities often offer merit-based scholarships. There are private sources of financial aid, as well as civic organizations and churches, as well as your employers. So some people's parents may be employed at a specific place that offers some kind of tuition reimbursement or a scholarship. So you definitely want to check out your parents' employment to see if they have any sources of financial aid to help fund your education. Grants and scholarships. What is the difference between a grant and a scholarship? A grant is typically need-based and usually does not require repayment. A scholarship, on the other hand, is merit-based and is awarded for things like academics, talents, and other achievements. How do you apply for a grant and how do you apply for a scholarship? So for a grant, you would complete the FAFSA application to possibly receive a federal or an institutional grant. For scholarships, we recommend using outside scholarship reputable websites. And you can also, if you're admitted to Stony Brook and you commit to Stony Brook, we have our own dedicated scholarship platform called Scholarship Universe that you can use to continue your search for institutional scholarship opportunities. So now we're going to talk about self-help aid. Federal loans, as well as private loans and Parent Plus loans, are a type of self-help aid. So for federal loans, these are loans taken out in the student's name to help pay for their education. We have federal direct subsidized loans as well as federal direct unsubsidized loans. The key difference between these two loans is that a subsidized loan is a loan in which the government covers the interest while you're in school, enrolled in at least half time, and during your 6-month grace period. The unsubsidized loan, on the other hand, the government does not cover the interest while you are in school. The interest starts to accumulate once the loan is dispersed to your institution. Incoming freshmen in their first year of college are eligible for a maximum of $5,500 in a combined total of the subsidized and unsubsidized loan. And out of that 5,500, a maximum of 3,500 can be subsidized. Next, we have federal Parent Plus loans. So this is a loan taken out in the parent's name on behalf of the student and is applied to the student's balance to help assist with their expenses with attending college. The amount is determined by the remaining cost of attendance. A credit check is required for this loan, and for the 2026 to 2027 year, there's a maximum of $20,000 per year. You can apply for a federal Parent Plus loan on the studentaid.gov website, which is the same website that you complete your FAFSA application on. Private educational loans. These loans are offered through a private lending institution and are not part of the federal government programs. When applying for federal When applying for private educational loans, you want to be very selective in choosing your lender. You want a lender that will give you things like the best interest rates, lowest fees, and best repayment plans. Failure to fully research your private educational loan lenders can cause you to incur excessive debt, and we don't need that. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about work study programs. What is work study and how does it work? Work study is a part-time job for students with exceptional financial need, and the earnings help cover personal expenses. How are jobs assigned? Students can apply for available positions on campus. We have platforms called Handshake, as well as the Career Center on campus, which we direct students to further help them find employment on campus. Now we'll move on to understanding your financial aid offer. How do I compare aid offers from different schools? You want to look at the net price, which is the cost of attendance minus the grants and the scholarships. Are there additional costs not covered by the aid package? You want to make sure that you are aware of indirect costs like transportation and personal expenses. So these are things that you are not directly billed for, but you accumulate them as your child goes on to college. Can aid packages change after the first year? So some scholarships and grants are renewable. So you want to confirm the requirements of those scholarships and you want to make sure if they are renewable for the entire time that your student will be in school or if they are a 1-year opportunity. So for our New York State residents, we have a grant called the New York State Tuition Assistance Program. This is specifically for New York State residents that make under 125,000 on their New York State taxes. You must have a completed FAFSA on file to be eligible to file for your TAP application, and it is handled by the Higher Education Services Corporation. There are a plethora of other New York State scholarships, including the World Trade Center Memorial Scholarship, which covers full tuition, room, and board, the New York State Math Science Teaching Incentive Scholarship, which covers full tuition, the New York State Scholarship for Academic Excellence, as well as the Veteran Tuition Assistance Award, and many more. All of these can be found on www.hesc.ny.gov. Next, we have the Excelsior Scholarship. You must be a New York State resident to receive this scholarship. You have to complete the TAP application before completing the Excelsior application. There also is a contract that comes along with the Excelsior application, so you want to make sure that you're fully reading everything that you're signing up for. It's important to note that the Excelsior Scholarship is tuition only and it is also a last dollar award. So what that means is that after all of your other grants, federal SEOG, New York State TAP, any other tuition credits, as well as scholarships, after those are factored in, then Excelsior comes in and can cover up to the tuition cost based on what you're qualified for. Excelsior also comes with a contract that you must agree to reside and work in the state of New York for the amount of years that you receive the scholarship. So now we're going to be moving on to talking about your award letter. The SUNY Smart Track Award Letter is a standard award letter used by all 64 institutions. And this letter is going to provide you a complete picture of the cost to attend Stony Brook University. The key takeaways that we'll be going over is that it lists all potential costs, not the amount that you will actually be billed. So it lists direct costs, which you will be billed for, and indirect costs, which you will not be billed for. It's also important to note that the presence of an award estimate does not mean that you have it yet. So we'll go deeper into that as we look at the award letter. So this is what your financial aid award letter looks like. At the top of the award letter, it has your estimated cost of attendance for the year. It also has the scholarships and the grants that you were offered in the middle section of the award letter. And at the bottom, it has your loan options as well as your federal work study options. And lastly, it has your estimated net cost after all other aid is factored in. Now we'll break down this award letter into more detail. We have direct and indirect costs. So for the 25 to 26 academic year, you can see that tuition and fees are directly paid to the university and cost approximately $11,008. Housing and meals are also paid directly to the university and totals to be about $19,044, and that totals to an estimated cost of attendance of $30,052. That is specifically what you are billed for. Then we have our indirect costs, which are not paid to the university. So we don't directly charge you for things like books and supplies, transportation, and other educational costs. So we get a lot of questions asking what are other educational costs. These things consist of your personal expenses, such as buying laundry detergent to wash your clothes, buying clothing, buying hygiene products, things like that. So that's what's included in the other educational expenses. And that is how we get the total estimated cost of attendance for a New York State resident of about $34,258. Now, in the middle section of your award letter, we have scholarships and grant options. Scholarships and grants are considered gift aid and there is no repayment needed. So, on this award letter, we have the Presidential Scholarship for $1,000, and then we have a bunch of grants that the student was offered, including a federal Pell Grant, federal SEOG, the TAP, the SUNY Tuition Credit, and the SBU Grant. Now, it's important to note that the TAP and the SUNY tuition credit are both estimates and they require an additional application. So you do have to log on to the HESC website and fill out your TAP application and include the Stony Brook School Code 0875 if you haven't done so already. Next, we have the loan options. Loan options for incoming freshmen first year is a total of $5,500, as well as the student had a federal work study opportunity of $2,000 for the entire year. That will be $1,000 per semester. Then the estimated cost after all other aid is considered would be $9,018. On the bottom of this of the cost of attendance sheet, we do have information on private loans, Parent Plus loans, as well as new student information and the time option payment plan, which we will go to further we will go into deeper on a further slide. So the key takeaways of your SUNY Smart Track award letter include your net costs. It gives you an idea of how much you will pay towards the total cost of attendance, factoring in grants and scholarships. And you want to remember that indirect costs are also included in this number. You're not directly billed for indirect costs. Now let's dive deeper into the costs. So this includes our 2026 to 2027 estimated full-time cost of attendance. So this is for a student that is expecting to take a full-time course load of 12 credits per semester at minimum. So tuition for a New York State resident costs $7,070. We have additional fees that cost $3,860. Housing, which we take an average, that would be $12,291. Then the meal plan, which if you're dorming on campus, you are required to have a meal plan as a first year student. And the meal plan would be approximately $7,450. And then the total direct cost we have for a commuter student or a student living off campus, as well as the total direct cost for a student that is living on campus. Then we have the same information but for the out-of-state residents. So we have the tuition of $31,050 along with the fees, which stay the same, as well as housing and the meal plan. So the main difference between a New York State resident and an out-of-state resident is the cost of tuition. And the total direct cost for an out-of-state resident would be $54,651. Then at the bottom of this page, we also include the indirect costs because even though you're not actually billed for indirect costs, it does give you a more comprehensive view of how much you can expect to pay for college. So we include books in the cost of attendance, as well as transportation and personal expenses. So the total estimated yearly cost of attendance to attend Stony Brook University as a full-time student would be $34,819 for a New York State resident and $58,799 for an out-of-state resident. And this information can be found on our website. Payment plans and options. So a lot of people ask if our school offers a payment plan, and we do offer something called the time option payment plan, which is a monthly payment plan that spreads out your costs over the course of either 4 or 3 months. So the deadlines to sign up for payment plans come up in about August, right around the time when bills are due. We also get a lot of questions about what happens if my financial aid situation changes. We recommend that you contact our office to let us know a little bit more about your circumstances and to see if there are any other resources that we can provide to you and your family. Are there opportunities to appeal for more aid? If there are significant changes in your family's financial circumstances, there may be opportunities to appeal for more aid in the case of if you're not already receiving a full federal Pell Grant, we may be able to appeal your aid and offer you a federal Pell Grant through a process called special circumstances. Resources for families. So we have the FAFSA website, which is studentaid.gov. So that is where you go to fill out your FAFSA application. If you haven't filled one out already, we recommend that everyone does that as soon as possible. That is also where you would go to fill out a Parent Plus loan application if your parent is interested in taking out a Parent Plus loan on your behalf to help pay for your expenses. Then we have scholarship search tools. At Stony Brook, we specifically have a platform called Scholarship Universe that students can use once they are admitted and committed to Stony Brook. So once you are sure that you're attending here and you have placed your deposit, you would gain access to Scholarship Universe, which includes all of our institutional and internal scholarships as well as our external scholarships. Then we also offer some resources on other external scholarships, including FastWeb, College Board, and other local community organizations. Then the last resource that we have for families would be our financial aid office. We always ask you guys to just reach out with your questions. We're glad to help. We're happy to help. Give us a call, send us an email, stop by our office if you're available to do so. So now we'll take a look at the timeline for incoming freshmen. May 1st is when your deposits are due. In June and July, that's when we start generating bills and they become available after your student has registered. So if your student hasn't registered for classes yet, that is when, once they register, that's when they'll actually generate, Student Financial Services will actually generate a bill for your student. Then in August, around August 15th, that is when bills are due, and that's the deadline to enroll in the 4-month payment plan. If you miss the deadline to enroll in the 4-month payment plan, then we also have a 3-month payment plan the following month. That deadline would be September 15th. There is more information to come from Student Financial Services during orientations. That would be our billing department, also known as the Bursar's office, also known as student accounts. So some resources that we have for incoming first year students would be located on our website, which this QR code will take you to, and our website is also linked at the bottom of this page. There is the net price calculator, which just shows you how much it gives you a personalized estimate of how much it might cost you to attend Stony Brook University. Then we have new student timelines, which takes you from the time that you create your FSA ID and fill out your FAFSA application to when bills are actually due come August. We have the undergraduate cost, which we went over previously, but it has more information about the cost of attendance, what tuition costs, what housing costs, meal plan, personal expenses, direct versus indirect costs. We have it all laid out for you on our website. Then we also have new student Q&As. We have a lot of frequently asked questions on that page, and it's very helpful to review those if you have any other questions. So lastly, I would just like to thank everyone for coming out. Our contact information is included on this page. Our phone number is 631-632-6840. We are located in the Stony Brook Student Union, Suite 208. That is up on the second floor. And we can be emailed at any time at finaid@stonybrook.edu. We pride ourselves in communicating with parents and students, and I personally love it when when you guys contact us. I have a lot of pleasure picking up the phone and helping new students out and making sure they have a comprehensive view of what it's like to attend Stony Brook University. So don't hesitate to reach out. We have everyone here to support you in this journey as you consider Stony Brook. Thank you.
Excellent, as always. Excellent information. Just as a heads up, I see everyone has gotten the message that you can use the Q&A. We have over almost 50 questions answered already, which is really exciting. So we'll discuss some of those live, just so everyone can kind of get a sense of what other questions are being asked. One question that comes up often is, what exactly is the SAI? And is that something that can be negotiated or is it permanent?
Okay, so the SAI stands for Student Aid Index, and it's this weird number that you get when you fill out your FAFSA application. It's not how much the federal government expects you to pay for college. It's not how much aid you're going to receive. It's just an index eligibility number that helps your institution know what kind of need-based aid that you're eligible for. So whether or not you're eligible for a federal Pell Grant, a subsidized loan, an unsubsidized loan, a combination of all of them, that's what the SAI is.
Great. And so, in terms of gift aid versus self-help aid and how loans are incorporated into that and repayment, how how should I kind of navigate um, how much gift aid versus self-help aid I should be looking for?
So typically with gift aid being something that you don't have to repay, you want to take a look at your gift aid first, which would be your scholarships and your grants. That's because you don't have to pay that back. You want to think of your self-help aid as something that will supplement your gift aid, so you may have to tap into those options. So we have federal loans, such as the subsidized and unsubsidized loan, that can help you pay for your college expenses, as well as work study. If your student is eligible for work study, they would find a job on campus and they can use that job to help cover their personal expenses that accumulate over their time in college. So you would ideally be using a combination of both.
Okay. And so for the tuition amount, the one that's provided with the award letter is an estimate. Is that generally pretty accurate for what I should expect tuition and fees to be for next year, or could there be some variables?
So those prices are usually set by the state. So for tuition for a New York State resident, the maximum, well, tuition is 35 per semester. So that totals to 70 a year. It's a little bit higher for out-of-state students because they are out of state, but you can find this information on our cost of attendance page as well as Student Financial Services page. They have a page for tuition and billing.
Oh, great. For let me go back to this. So for using the net price calculator, what information do I need before I can start actually putting information in if I want to compare different schools' costs?
So the net price calculator definitely walks you through how to do it. I would just know what kind of gift aid you have, how much you or your parents may be willing to or able to put into into your college expenses as well.
Okay. And for grants or other gift aid like scholarships, is that something that I can kind of know is will be a set amount every year until I graduate in 4 years, or is that something that could change over time, specifically the grants or scholarships?
So, for any award given to you at any school, I would recommend reviewing your award detail. It typically has terms and conditions specific to that award. So, I can speak towards one example. Would be our Presidential Merit Scholarship. That's given to high achieving incoming freshmen based off of their high school achievements. And it comes with lots of terms and conditions. For example, you need to maintain at least 12 credits of enrollment, you need to maintain a 3.0 GPA, that it's renewable for 4 consecutive years. So you want to take a look at the terms and conditions of each of your awards. Grants, on the other hand, for example, your federal Pell Grant, that's based off of filling out your FAFSA yearly. So while your presidential scholarship may be renewable for up to 4 years, your federal Pell Grant, if you have changes in income, that can cause your federal Pell Grant to go up or down. Um, and then what other awards do we have? We have things like loans. You want to maintain at least 6 credits of enrollment, and then as long as you're not in any default on loans, you would be eligible to receive loans. So it really depends on the specific award type. I recommend reviewing the award detail, which you can review on Solar. If you have questions about a specific award that you want to know more about, you can reach out to us. You can also find the award detail on your Solar. We have a self-service guide that helps you navigate Solar. So if you don't know how to view the award detail, if you just reach out to us, we can send you that guide and it'll help you navigate each award and each award's detail.
Thank you. For New York State aid, I have to have, if I filled out the FAFSA, should I fill out the TAP application? What else should I be looking at in New York State aid that I might qualify for through those applications?
So for our New York State residents, you want to definitely start with your TAB application. That's where it all begins. The TAB application unlocks all the other New York State applications that are available for students. So you want to start with your TAP application, include the Stony Brook School Code 0875, and that will allow us to receive your award amount once it's processed by HESC. And then we also have the Excelsior application, which follows the TAP application. If you may not qualify for TAP, there's a chance that you might qualify for Excelsior. There is also the STEM Award. There is also the World Trade Center Scholarship. There are lots of New York State aid awards. So you definitely want to start with the TAP application first because that unlocks all the awards. And then you can review the eligibility requirements for the other awards on the HESC website.
Okay. Now, Scholarship Universe, is that something I can access right away, if I'm accepted, or do I have to be enrolling or committing to Stony Brook to access those additional scholarship opportunities?
So for these additional scholarship opportunities, you do have to be committed to Stony Brook. You do have to be going to enroll and you have to be coming here. So those opportunities are reserved for students who are committed to Stony Brook.
And does that application just ask me like a bunch of questions and then match me, or are there specific scholarships I should be looking for and then applying to separately in Scholarship Universe?
So initially, Scholarship Universe presents you with a bunch of questions, and it can seem overwhelming at first. When I was a student at Stony Brook, I did participate in using Scholarship Universe, and I wondered why they asked me so many questions. But it's really to help narrow down what scholarships that you're actually eligible for. So, for example, if you may have been a veteran, there might be scholarships that are specifically directed to former or current veterans. If you participate in extracurriculars that are music related, there may be scholarship opportunities directed to that. If you are a New York State resident, there may be additional scholarship opportunities that are like directed to people who reside in New York State. If you have certain GPAs, there are scholarship opportunities for people with GPAs, certain numbers and above. It asks you a bunch of questions that really personalizes and matches you to um, it just matches you to a bunch of scholarships that you may be eligible for. So then you would review those matches and then you pick from those matches what scholarships you're interested in applying for. They all have different requirements. Some of them may require an essay, some of them may require you to submit some form of community service, some of them may have additional supplemental questions that you may have to answer. So it really all just depends on what scholarships you're matched to and then what scholarships you choose to apply for.
Okay. Um, so for work study, is that a federal aid based on the FAFSA? Is that state? And what happens if that's part of my financial aid package and then I don't actually work on campus?
We actually do have that happen sometimes. So, so federal work study is from the federal government and it is from filling out your FAFSA application. So if you're a high needs student, then you may be eligible for federal work study. So because federal work study funds are extremely limited at Stony Brook University, not every student who is eligible for federal work study will receive federal work study. So that's one big misconception that we have. We get questions like, my student aid index is this. How come I don't have federal work study? And unfortunately, we just don't have the resources to support every single high needs student, but we do encourage students to apply to their FAFSA application as early as possible so that if we have the federal work study funds, that they get it. And then if you have the federal work study funds and you choose not to work on campus, then you simply don't receive that money. So we have, for example, in the award letter that was on the screen, they had $2,000 of federal work study funds allocated for that student. So that means that the maximum federal work study funds that the student could have accumulated would have been $2,000 over the course of that year. If that student chose not to work, then they simply would not receive the federal work study funding. It it does not get factored into your financial aid. Um, it's because you are not billed for federal work study. You receive that money personally through direct deposit usually. So federal work study is something that goes directly to the student. It does not go directly to the school. So the student receives that money.
Got it. Um, so if I am an undergraduate student after, my first year, I'm thinking about studying abroad. Is that going to be like a significantly different tuition cost? And would any financial aid actually apply to things that aren't kind of traditional on campus opportunities that I might take advantage of?
So, if you're interested in studying abroad, I would recommend reaching out to our office because reach out to our office as well as the study abroad office. We do have more information for you. But essentially, for study abroad students, your aid, if you're receiving like a federal Pell Grant, you may be eligible to still receive that. You may be eligible to for TAP specifically, we do wait until we receive your transcript to disperse your TAP funds. So that's something that's a little bit different for study abroad.
Okay. For the award letter, if I'm looking at it, I think I understand it, but I just want to verify some things and make sure I'm understanding which parts of it are going to have to be paid back, which are guaranteed, or gift aid. Can I meet with you? Should I call? How should I kind of make sure that I can really speak to someone and understand what I think I'm reading in the award letter?
So I recommend giving us a call or sending us an email. Gift aid is aid that does not have to be paid back. Self-help aid may have to be paid back. So a loan is a form of self-help aid. It is still financial aid, but it's self-help aid. So repayment for your federal loans starts 6 months after you graduate.
Okay. Or if I stop out for a semester.
Yeah, so if you drop beneath 6 credits of enrollment, that begins your 6 month grace period.
Okay. Um, for some of the scholarships or aid, it seems like it can be applied to just tuition. Are there opportunities to have additional things like living on campus and meal plans and books and all those other personal expenses covered, or is that mostly through loans for most people, or is there just not one standard? Is everyone really different?
It really depends on what aid you're receiving. So if you're a New York State resident and you're receiving TAP is only going to go towards your tuition. TAP will not cover housing, TAP will not cover fees, TAP will not cover anything else but tuition. That is the same with Excelsior. Excelsior doesn't cover tuition. I'm sorry. Excelsior only covers tuition. It doesn't cover anything else but tuition, and it only covers up to the maximum tuition amount. So, there are other awards, for example, our Presidential Scholarship and a lot of our merit-based scholarships. If you see the letters NTU, that stands for non-tuition use. That means that we won't apply that specific award to tuition. So your TAP will go to tuition, and then your Presidential Scholarship can be used to apply to things like fees and housing and meal plan.
Got it. So there are um, over 90 questions in the Q&A, which is great. Most of them are already answered. But one of the themes I'm seeing a lot is about residency. And I'm sure that's a topic that comes up a lot just because of how the tri-state area is. And some people go to school out of state, but they have a parent or a family or supporter who lives in New York State. How do I figure that out? Is that something I work with a different office to do? Should I first contact financial aid to see if I'm eligible for something differently than what I've been awarded because I think I might be not considered in state? How does that work in state versus out of state tuition?
So our office doesn't handle residency at all, but this is where I refer you to Student Financial Services. Their email is residency@stonybrook.edu. If you call their phone number, 631-632-2455, there is an option for residency specifically. So you can either give them a call, send them an email. I believe Lindsay just posted their link in the chat for residency. So if you have questions about residency, you can definitely reach out to them and they can talk to you and walk you through all of the residency requirements. In our office, all we can basically do is confirm whether or not you're an in-state or out-of-state resident because we do have access to that information. But if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of residency, you would have to reach out to Student Financial Services.
Perfect. Now, let's say I'm here today, but I have yet to fill out the FAFSA. um, should I do that right away? And what if I'm intimidated by it and not sure where to begin? Can I also get support with how to get started with the FAFSA through your office?
Yeah, so if you haven't filled out your FAFSA yet, don't feel discouraged. It's a very involved process that can be intimidating, especially if this is your first time doing it. I know you guys are first year freshmen, so it is your first time doing it unless you've supported like a sibling who has previously attended college. For if you haven't filled it out, just do it. There's no other way but to just like get your toes wet and fill out the FAFSA application. I would say that the sooner you get your FAFSA application in, the sooner we can get an award letter to you. So we can't tell you exactly how much aid you're going to receive unless you fill out your FAFSA application. So if you have questions, if you get stuck on a specific part, you can give us a call and we can try our best to assist you. But definitely get your FAFSA in as soon as possible so we can get your aid back to you as soon as possible. We are continuously packaging students as we receive FAFSA applications. So if you haven't done it yet, get that in so we can get your aid out.
Great. Now, if I am a national merit finalist and I've just found that out and I'm committing to Stony Brook, I'm definitely going to be a Sea Wolf in starting in 2026. Is that kind of a guaranteed scholarship? Do I have to notify the financial aid office? How do I get started with? And I guess the same thing for a valedictorian, for example, of my class. I've heard there are scholarships for those types of things, but I'm not sure if that's something that is just certain students will get selected for, or just if I qualify, I get it.
So in all three of those scenarios, you can definitely reach out to our office and we can request further documentation from you, especially for the valedictorian and salutatorian scholarships. We do offer about 2,000 per year for the valedictorian and 1,000 per year for the salutatorian. And then we ask for your official class rank on official letterhead. So we are able to offer supplemental scholarships for those positions. You would just need to reach out to our office so that we can then request the appropriate documentation from you.
Okay, great. So there's possibly some additional funding. And would that then reduce any other scholarships? How would like a new scholarship impact what my current award might be?
So, with all the aid that we are able to offer a student, we do have to remain in your cost of attendance, which we talked about previously. Per federal regulations, we can't offer students more aid than their cost of attendance, which is how much it costs to go to Stony Brook University. So, you can think of your cost of attendance as similar to your budget. So, we can't go over that budget. So, if we receive a scholarship, as long as it fits within your budget, we can offer you that scholarship. So, if you receive like a valedictorian scholarship and there's room in your budget, we offer you that scholarship and you're able to accept it. Um, there is a chance that certain scholarships can impact if you're an Excelsior recipient. So if you're receiving Excelsior, Excelsior only goes to tuition. So if you have a scholarship doesn't that is not specifically designated like for tuition, if it can also go to tuition, any other scholarship, any other external award, all of those can impact your Excelsior award if they don't have that specific designation on them.
Okay. Let's see. We have some questions. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. So, if I thought that I qualified for the SEOG grant, but I'm not seeing it, is that because they're limited or because there's a discrepancy and I need to contact you with new information?
So the SEOG grant is a need-based grant that is offered to students if there's funding and if the student has applied by our priority deadline. So the priority deadline for Stony Brook University for filling out the FAFSA would have been February 15th. So if your student fills out the FAFSA prior to February 15th and they are a high need student, then if we had the funding, we would have offered you a federal SEOG grant. So it really has to do with the timing of completing your FAFSA as well as available funding because those are specifically campus-based institutional grants, and we have limited funding for those grants, and it goes to our highest needs recipients first.
Aha. Okay, that makes sense. Will my decision to, like, if I'm thinking about living on campus, but I'm also not sure about living on campus and I might not, is that going to change my financial aid? I know it'll change the cost of attendance, but would it impact financial aid if I chose, yes, I'm living on campus and then changed my mind? Would aid go away?
So aid wouldn't necessarily go away. When you make the decision to either dorm or not dorm, your aid remains the same. So the aid that you were offered through the FAFSA application and through the institution remains the same, whether or not you're dorming on campus or if you're commuting.
Aha. Okay. Um, are there are there programs like, let's say I am accepted to a different SUNY school and they offered me a different financial aid package? Is that something I can come to your financial aid office with and try to negotiate, or is that just a separate school with separate funding?
So we get that a lot. It is a separate school with separate funding. So for example, different schools have different costs of attendances. So like I mentioned previously, your cost of attendance can vary because it just costs different amounts to go to different schools.
Got it. Does my aid, is my financial aid or scholarships impacted by whether I take 12 credits or, 18 credits? If I'm full time, is that going to matter if there's like a range of credits that I take? I know if it goes down, obviously below full time, that would impact my aid or scholarships. But what about just within that kind of general full time credit limit?
So usually most of our awards, for example, like if it's a merit-based scholarship, those require you to remain full-time. If you're taking 15 credits and receiving a presidential merit scholarship, you're not going to be impacted. You can be taking 15 credits and still receive your scholarship. The only thing that would come along with taking um, a larger course load would be whether or not you're taking over a certain amount, which is more of a billing question. If you take over a certain amount, they do charge you a course overload fee, but taking 15, 17 credits won't necessarily impact your financial aid.
Great. Are there questions that, as a financial aid professional, you get on a daily or weekly basis that are kind of really kind of key points that you want to make sure our audience, before we say goodbye to them today, are kind of really understanding about what to expect in this whole process, whether they have their financial aid award letter or not yet?
It's a really good question, actually. I feel like all the questions I get on a day-to-day basis are so reasonable. Um, but we get a lot of loan questions, usually the difference between a subsidized and an unsubsidized loan. Should I take out a loan? Um, should I apply for TAP? Am I eligible for TAP? How can I fill the gap between the aid that I'm currently receiving? The biggest question that we receive, I feel like, would definitely be like, can I receive more aid? What are my options if I'm currently not receiving enough to fill the gap between what I'm receiving and what my bill is. In terms of additional aid, we do have additional aid options. We have Parent Plus loans, which if you're a dependent student, your parent can take out a Parent Plus loan on your behalf. We have private loans to help close the gap as well. We have a list of lenders on our page that you can sort through and figure out which lender is best for you. We have Scholarship Universe for students who are committed to Stony Brook and will be attending here. Um, a lot of people don't take advantage of the scholarship opportunities that we have on campus. So I would recommend that you just apply to whatever you're able to apply to, and you never know, you might get it. What else? I think the biggest thing to remember throughout all of this is that we really are just here to help you out. We answer our phone calls from 10 to 3. We answer our emails. We're here if you walk in. We don't schedule appointments. We accept walk-ins. So I would say the biggest thing to do is just ask questions. We're literally here to help. So just ask whatever questions that you have.
That is wonderful advice. Well, I want to thank all of our guests. I have seen different people kind of joining and leaving, and hopefully everyone has gotten their questions answered and really feels confident in their next steps. But just know that both in the undergraduate admissions office, as much as we can help, we will try, and the financial aid office, as you've heard, will answer questions. You can ask them over and over again until you really get it. It's a very important topic. Finances, being able to afford to go to college is a huge decision. Where you're going to go, what that path is going to look like for each student and their families and supporters is going to be very different. So, take your time with this. You do have until May 1st, which is our commitment deadline, to accept or decline your offer of admission. For most students, that's by paying your tuition deposit, your new student fee, and only if you're living on campus or looking to live on campus would you actually pay for the campus residence's deposit. You don't want to pay that if you're not interested in living on campus. And then I did see a question before about whether deposits are refundable. They are up until May 1st, so I don't recommend submitting the deposit until you're sure, and you definitely are going to commit to be a Seawolf. Otherwise, it's just a really big process for you to go through to request the money back. So better just to wait until you're sure. We're not going to give your seat away. As you know, up until May 1st, we're here waiting for you. And hopefully you'll take some time to, if you haven't already had an opportunity to visit campus, we have some upcoming virtual events as well as on-campus events specifically for our admitted future Seawolves, admitted Seawolf days in the end of March and early April, admitted student tours during the week. So lots of opportunities to come and see us, check us out again if you haven't been able to, and lots of different virtual topics coming up. Again, reach out to us, undergraduate admissions. We'll try to answer questions. We try not to answer financial aid questions because we don't want to give you the wrong information. So we always will refer you to our experts. But thank you so much to the entire financial aid office for all of your answers in the Q&A today, and especially to our presenter for giving us such great advice. And I wish you all the best of luck with your college choices. We look forward to hearing from you and seeing you soon. Have a great rest of your day. Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you so much.